Om Namah Shivaya. Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful.
Cool.
What can we do?
Om. Om Namah Shivaya. Good morning. If everyone believes a thing, anything, does that make it true?
Interesting. Hopefully not.
Does everyone believe any of these?
Yeah, most everyone believes something.
But anyway.
Most believe something remarkably similar. If everyone believes a thing, does that make it true? That's a question and answer to hold on to in these times. By the very fact that, we're in quote unquote world, we're in the world, not of the world, we're in it. This world, what we call world, this world appearance, this world show, it's vibrational. Right? It's vibrational. This is the way the modern science observes it, is vibrational. In fact, the string theory, M theory, the latest scientific concepts, theories about the nature of the universe are vibrational. And we discover the relationship between the objects, the forms, and vibration. And we see that the forms are actually vibrations. This is also modern science. This is more and more understood. And there are a lot of experiments that are proving this. I've seen recently some sea experiments, in fact, of vibrations in the medium of water. And of course, we've talked sometimes about Emoto-san and his life's works. This book and the documentary give us a taste of it, works with water. And some of us, have you been exposed to that, Atmaram, Tim? The works with crystalline shapes that are formed based on freezing water that comes from different sources. You should see. If you're not, you should see. It's foundational in terms of having some understanding of this world show and how it functions. So, and thoughts are vibrations. Vibrations are thoughts. Both are so. We chant mantra and we feel the vibration of the mantra. You feel it right now, right? If you just take a moment and observe, you feel it. In fact, you might even see it. Certainly you feel it. Do you feel it in the fingertips? Do you feel the vibration from the mantra in the fingertips? If you bring your awareness there right now, do you feel it? If you bring the awareness to the throat, do you feel it there? If you bring the awareness to the Muladhara chakra, if you bring it to the base, do you feel it there? If you bring it to the big toe, do you feel it there? And if you really reflect on it for a moment, you'll see that even your world experience now through the senses is the same vibrational experience. So you're seeing in a different way than you see at other times. It's a shift of vibration. It's a result of the vibration. We're experiencing vibration. And so it affects the thoughts, the nature of the thoughts, but also the practice is a practice of thought, isn't it? Because you think the mantra and then we speak it and the thoughts become of the nature of the mantra. Rukmini, right? And thoughts become of the nature of the mantra. Yeah. The mind settles down and it comes into a groove, and the groove is the mantra groove, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a very pleasant groove. So, recognizing this and recognizing that just because everybody thinks something doesn't make it true. What we see is that we deal with in this world experience, we deal with vibrational forms all the time. We don't recognize them as vibrational forms, but a yogi does. A yogi does begin to recognize them as vibrational forms. A yogi does begin to recognize the vibrational forms in the person sitting across from you, for example, which is the identity that they're holding on to. Normally the vibrations, they flow, but we can restrict ourselves. We can hold on and identify with very specific vibrations. Vibrations that are called fear, or anger, or hatred, or judgment, like that. We can hold on to them. We can make them our own. But also love, compassion, kindness, forgiveness, these are also vibrational. So everything in the world is experienced, and you are the experiencer. In truth, you're the experiencer. In truth, you're not of this world. Right? So this is where we come today, because what we discussed today is very controversial. And most people won't believe it. And most people won't believe it's possible. Most people won't believe it's beneficial. But does that mean it's true? So here's where we come today. It's the practice of love divine, the practice of devotion, the practice of freedom. And what's discussed today, really, these are fundamental practices in all of the paths of yoga. It's not just here. We had read, and we can see, I'll read the poem again and then we'll dive in. To the Lord, having dedicated himself and his worldly and heaven affairs, it behooves him not to worry of the worldly calamities. Now, you look at the world right now and it's all one big calamity, isn't it? It appears to be. 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 And everybody believes it is. But it's simply a vibration that so many are holding on to and are taking to be real. Truth. And then holding on, worrying about world calamities when love is still unattained. Right? Completely losing our priorities. Completely losing our balance. Losing ourselves into fear and anger and judgment and hatred and all of these things and these desires about the way it's supposed to be instead of accepting the way it is at this moment. Right? And really pumping up these vibrations. Can you contribute to a vibration? Can you contribute to a nature of thought? Can you contribute through your own actions if there's a thought vibration? And you can feel a thought vibration when you walk into a space, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can feel it when you walk in here, can't you? Mm-hmm. You can feel it when you walk into a bank. You can feel it when you walk into Phoenix. You were just in Phoenix. You can feel the thought vibration there, right? Mm-hmm. My God.
Miami.
Can you contribute to a thought vibration?
Yes.
And can you tune into a different vibration and bring a counter vibration? Yes. You have to know this. if we truly want to be a benefit, this is the mother work, the Mother Earth Restoration Trust work, the retreat that we did for 4 days. That was the work. It's to counter that prevailing thought vibration, which is underlying the words and the actions. Right? So, activities in the world are not to be scorned, but fruit discarded. Acts should be performed. Discussion on men and women, health, wealth and enemies, gossip, politics, all that stuff is not to be heard. Pride, vanity, and the like are firmly to be erased from your own inner persona. This is what's being shared. Erase some pride, desire, anger, and the like. In him should be expressed, dissolving three factors of experience. As a servant or as a wife, love alone we must pursue, love alone we must pursue. So we'll dive in a bit this morning. And there's a question that we were asked yesterday, and we'll see it. It'll fit either today or tomorrow. We'll see where it fits. But it's here. So here's the start. No worry or anxiety, and this is Narada. No worry or anxiety should be entertained at the worldly losses, as it is the nature of a true devotee to constantly surrender his limited self and all of his secular and sacred activities to the Lord of his heart. Now, this is speaking specifically of bhakti, but you'll see this in different ways in every one of the paths. So this is what I said, very controversial statement that's made by Narada this morning, especially in this time. Right? And let's discuss a little bit more and ask questions, etc. We'll read some of the commentary, but this is a big deal in terms of this world experience that we're having right now. Right? And it's counter to what most everyone would tell you your responsibility is. Mm. No worry or anxiety should be entertained at the worldly losses, as it is of the nature of a true devotee to constantly surrender his or herself and all of one's secular and sacred activities. So worldly and religious or sacred activities, what are seen as that? To the Lord of his heart. And in fact, just that makes the secular sacred. Does that make sense? If you engage in the worldly activities as an offering to the beloved, to your beloved, does that not make the worldly activities sacred? Mm-hmm. Just a short one. I'd renounce. And that included renouncing, people know me as Tech Swami, because I through this conditioning, I learned a lot about technology and I really enjoyed it. At some point I would say I loved it. I wouldn't say that today, but I don't hate it either. But I recognize it as a tool, as an instrument in the hands of the Lord. Mm. And so, at some point I'd sworn it off and I'd say, I'll never do this again. I'll never get online again. I'll never have a computer again, all that stuff. But then I had one and I found myself in India. And after being there for a year or so, the word got out that I knew something about technology, and all the swamis, they had smartphones they were trying to figure out and computers they were trying to set up. And so I might as well have hung a shingle out that said Tech Swami. So, it's still the thing. I don't keep up with the modern software as much anymore. So, it used to be I was on top of all of it. It's not the case anymore, but Gopala, we're doing this thing. So it just so happens that I have some experience with it. Okay. So even the secular can be made sacred by offering those activities. The ashram has bills to pay. Who pays the bills? Well, it turns out it's part of my duty, part of my dharma to pay the bills. So that's a very secular activity, right? So how does it become sacred? You see? So it's not hard. You just say, dear Lord, I do this for you. It's your money coming in. It's your money going out. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. Here, it's yours. right? So, but here's the big controversial point that's being made. No worry or anxiety should be entertained at the worldly losses. And then he explains why. And can we catch that there are, within this inner world, there are, as it were, two vibrational flows. One of them is absolute and pure. We can call it love, peace, silence. It's always here, right? The intuition, it's always here. The intuitive self, it's always here. Our experience is that we only hear our intuitive voice now and then. Why is that? You want to take a shot?
We buried it with other habits.
Because we've covered it up most of the time.
Yeah. Static.
Because we don't want to listen to it a lot of the time. The mind craves drama. Right. It glitters. It's, a lot of the ideas that are entertained very, very deeply, they're built on drama. And some satisfaction that seems to want to be attained based in conflict and winning, vanquishing, and all of this. It's coming from this idea of separation, this feeling of being separate. So at every sorry?
Like I see a lot now. It's like this hateful desire and craving for justice.
Right. And we're seeing this, and at some level we say, it's fine, and yes, there needs to be justice. Yes, there needs to be justice. Swami Vishnu, he would say something that's so helpful, and I can picture him in the Way of Peace, in the older documentary. And some of us who've seen it, do you remember he's holding the claw, and he says society is made up of the individuals. And he said, here, this is cotton cloth. He says, it's made of threads. And if I want for it to be silk cloth, then I have to change every thread. And in the same way, we're in a field where what we call world, this world appearance, we could say it at different levels. We could say it's made up of all of the people, right? All of the individuals, each working out their own karma, each working out their own thing, each on their own individual path back to the one, back to Mother. Each and every one only want love. Each and every one only want to be happy. It applies to all the human beings. It applies to all the cats and the dogs and the blades of grass. Each and every one. So, and we understand the vibration that we're dealing with. We understand something about it. But even this, by the way, what's being shared, it would apply even if everyone were saying, oh, what a peaceful time we're living in. It would still apply, interestingly enough. But to have the peaceful time, the point is it's the individual transformations that have to be happening. Right? And they are happening. And that's one view of it. But the other thing is, if you really look at your individual role in the world, do you have an individual role in the world?
Yes.
You have an individual role in the world. So if you look at the choice, and it is a choice, because these two vibrational flows that are going, there is the flow of peace and silence. It's here. There is the intuitive flow. It's always on, baby. There's not a moment when it's not switched on. You can access it anytime you choose. Now, if the mind is all worked up and disturbed, it's very hard to access it. You really have to work at coming back into a place of stasis, right? In order to hear the intuitive voice. But don't you have the experience? Then you can?
Yes. Mantra.
Oh, it's always on.
Yeah.
It's always on. But the other one that's always on is the world flow.
Mm.
The secular flow. It's also the thoughts about things. The thoughts about things, the words about things, the appearance of things, the images, the motion picture show. It's always on also. You know, this is a 24/7 cinema. It's always on. And you can also always access that, can't you, within the inner world? So you have these two flows in the inner world all the time. You have the intuitive flow. You have the flow which is silence, which is of your own true nature. And you also have the expression, the world expression, and all of these emotions and all of this stuff that's also in the inner world. You know, the worst thing that anyone does here, that potential exists within each and every one of us. If we tap it. So be on guard. Home.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
But isn't the world just a projection of what's inside of us?
Yes, it is.
I mean, ultimately,
It is.
like those vibrations
It is.
are from...
Yeah. Now that's it's hard to understand, and really depth is needed in terms of practice, because that's an intellectual statement about it. Sometimes I say just, but normally I wouldn't intentionally say it's just this, that it is this. And this is what Swami Vishnu was saying. The world is the collection of the individuals. And if you say the world idea, it's the collection of the individual ideas, like this. So, okay, so let me read a little bit of the commentary. There's one point in particular here that Swamiji shares that's so beautiful. So he says, Narada boldly declares that even when beset by trials and misfortunes, when obstacles block the path, still devotion is easy. Indeed, love is superior to all other yogas. And then, quote, never entertain anxiety. This is directly from the sutra. Never entertain anxiety. Now, the thought comes because that current's always on, you see. Just a yogi is aware of the current, but doesn't see it as me or mine. They're passing clouds. This too must pass. I mean, everything comes and goes. And the appearance, the movie being always on, the show being always on, you know, it's constant change, but it's coming, it's going. The yugas, they rotate in order, the 4 yugas, you know, it's so long in earth years, but this life, it's like that, really, this physical life. So you see, in what we call normal consciousness, or what we call normal awareness, or what we call the real world, then we're honoring the world flow in the inner world. We're honoring the secular flow. We're honoring the emotional flow, all of this stuff. And we're not honoring the intuitive flow. We're not honoring peace. We're not honoring silence. This is the typical life today. Does that make sense? Because both are always on, so it's easy to see, really. Right? If you're not always residing in the intuitive flow, then you're not honoring it all the time. It's a choice. Now, to honor it all the time, you have to give up on everything you believe. And be present to what is. And quit living in beliefs and live in truth. right? And then you tell me if there's something wrong. Once you get to the place of peace and you live there, then let's have a conversation about what's wrong here. But we recognize suffering. We recognize suffering. And no one wants anyone to suffer. But this has to do with this. This has to do with what is the cause of suffering. Right? It's because we're entertaining. Here's this word again. We were using it in thought power. Entertaining. Harboring. The flow, which is the show, which is the constantly changing ephemeral, like the sea foam on the sea. Like the spray that comes off the waves in the ocean instead of the sea itself. See itself as silence. Above ground, everything's tossing, everything's moving. It's, today it's good, tomorrow it's bad. One of our dear Sangha members said, Swami, I'm in pain every day. And oh my God, I'm so sorry. Don't let it bother you. What else? Don't let it bother you. Because it'll pass. You see? So just don't let it bother you. Don't entertain the idea that something's wrong. Mm-hmm. Because it's not. Just because you believe it doesn't make it true. And if you can quit believing it, suspend belief, then you can see and experience more the intuitive flow. Right? And we live for the good times. But the good times, they turn to bad times. The bad times, they turn to good times. So this will pass. I don't know how long. My God, it may be a long time. But it doesn't have to be a long time. Because if we actually took this to heart and honored it and entertained that which is beneficial instead of that which always invariably leads us to suffering and also makes us a suffering machine that walks through the world carrying our suffering wherever we go and saying, here, have some suffering, please. This is why Peace Pilgrim said, and sometimes she was so darned adamant when she said it. If you knew the power of your thoughts, you would never think a negative thought again. And we want to talk about social responsibility. Right? I mean, as I said, very controversial. Most people would not believe what's said here. And it's not turning away from the responsibility. It's actually accepting the responsibility. You see? Does that make sense? It's really accepting the responsibility. I'm going to represent for love, doggone it. I'm going to represent for light. Dear Lord, I'm going to give you everything. I know you're in charge. It's all for you. So never entertain anxiety. Do not worry. Never mind what happens. This is the attitude for a true seeker to follow. This is Narayana. He is the reality. All these are from my loving Narayana alone. All this stuff is from my beloved alone. And somehow hold on. It's painful right now. Hold on. Hold on. Don't lose yourself to it. He says the cardinal attitude of heroism in our Sanatana Dharma philosophy is refuse to weep, keep smiling. Then even the sorrow that reaches us gets ashamed. The sorrow itself gets ashamed, he says, and retires in its incompetency to make us suffer. You want to hear that one more time?
Yeah.
Then even the sorrow that reaches us gets ashamed and retires Because it is incompetent, it is incapable of making us suffer. And really, this is so. If you've come to this place inside where you're able to see whatever comes and let it pass and not entertain it and not keep losing yourself to it, then even the world experience, it changes. Mm. And of course it changes. If you see, instead of a problem, if you see an opportunity, has the world not changed completely? And how many people does it take? Remember, we had the conversation yesterday. This is really your world that you're living in. So how many people does it take for you to change your world? One. And then magically you see the whole world has changed. Because then you start seeing the hearts of people. And you see and you feel the suffering and you feel the pain. And you're not going to laugh at them, for God's sakes. But you're going to know something about what's really causing it. Right? And you're going to be able to set an example. And you don't know when the example will bring some light into the world. You don't know. It could be in that moment. It could be, my God, years later. You don't know. So here's a quote Swamiji gives us, a way to consider. O Bhagavan, this is your Maya only. O beloved, I know you are just behind this very sorrow I am now facing. It's true, isn't it? Is it true?
So he's kind of telling us to remember the divine, even in the people, anything that's suffering, anyone that's suffering, remember there.
And remember that this whole world show, especially the experiences I'm having, they're not coming from anyone other than you. And I keep judging them. I keep telling you you're wrong, my dear Lord. I keep telling you that I don't deserve what you're giving me. I keep telling you that you misunderstand me, that you don't hear me, that you don't know me, that you don't know what's good for me. You don't know what I deserve. I keep telling you this. Right? But you're right here. And really, you're giving me this pain. Why are you giving me this pain? Oh my God, you're giving me an opportunity to remember you. To connect with you. Oh my God, you're giving me a chance to remember that this body is not eternal, that it's going to go any time now. You're giving me a lifeline. You see, it's possible with these two flows, if you touch the intuitive flow, it's possible to take anything that happens to you and see a deeper possibility about it. Right? Can you read those 4 statements up there? It's from Yana Mata. She's one of the great saints of Yogananda tradition. I think Atmaram, can you read it out loud?
Sure. The practical wisdom. See nothing. Look at nothing but your goal ever shining before you. The things that happen to us do not matter. What we become through them does. Each day, accept everything as coming from God, and at night, give everything back into His hands. Kayana Mata.
Oh. And this is a choice. You know, and here Narada is saying it's easy. I recognize it's not easy. But versus working it out in Jnana Yoga, it's pretty darn easy versus that. Also, that's helpful as well. So, O Bhagavan, this is your Maya only. This is your show only. This is all you. This is all yours. Oh, beloved, I know you are just behind this very sorrow I am facing now. You're not apart from it. You're just behind it. You're right here. This is the attitude of the true devotee in all his experiences, good or bad. And true enough, just behind the experiences is ever the consciousness divine, the effulgent one, constantly beaming forth its irrepressible glory. How can the devotee in the early stages of his seeking remain with such a philosophical composure? He has no direct knowledge yet that there is a consciousness behind everything, that all sorrows are only at the mental level, that I am not the mind and its sorrows, I am the knower of the sorrows, and so these sorrows cannot ever be mine. This is the jnani's fort. How can the bhakta stand apart from his sorrows? To a devotee, this is much easier than for anyone else. He is one who has already offered all of himself. He has laid at the altar of his Lord his entire being. So totally surrendered becomes his worldly and sacred personality that not only his physical being, but his ideas, his ideals, his worldly duties, even his spiritual duties, come to be entirely offered at the Lord's feet. His joy is only in going on striving for the Lord. All worries and anxieties thereafter are the Lord's. Then on what account should he ever weep? Apart from him, I do not exist, declares the devotee of Sri Narayana. Apart from the Lord, I do not exist. Everything of me is already laid at the feet of the Lord. I do not exist, so I cannot worry over anything. It is all now his worry. I am but the witness of the sorrow. As such, the sorrow itself cannot be or even mine. Constantly, the bhakta lives in the attitude, declaring himself, the worlds, and the Vedas to the Lord, his own self. By this attitude, the bhakta cultivates in himself the spirit of renunciation, the joy of surrender, and a constant sense of self-offering. To give is ever the expression of love. Love is measured by the very joy of sacrifice, of giving oneself and one's all to him or her, of course, the beloved. How can one take back what has once been offered in love? When one's anxieties have been offered, whose worries then are these? When one's self has been offered, who then exists to worry? Narayana, Narayana, it is all yours. Thus, the bhakta wastes no energy or spends any anxious enthusiasm over the various happenings in life. Tragedies or glories may come to him, but they are all the Lord's. It's always yours. This bhakta, the bhakta, remains free and serene, discovering fulfillment in her total and complete surrender unto the Lord of her heart. So he says the jnani, the practitioner of jnana yoga, has some understanding that the silence is always here and that the silence and the Lord are the same and that the intuitive self is the absolute. The jnani has some understanding of this. He's done some of the work and some of the study to have some understanding. And we don't necessarily live in it. Right? We can know something and not live according to it. Right? But the jnani has some knowledge, he says this, of what's really here. Right? Because we've done the work, we've asked the questions. And we've seen the answers. And we've recompiled our life experience to see that it's different than what I thought it was. But he shares the bhakta doesn't even need to worry about all of that, because if the bhakta can touch the beloved and offers the beloved all, then the beloved becomes the refuge for everything. and everything is the beloved's. Questions, comments about the discussion? Is it relevant in this age?
Can you talk about projection a little bit? Like, where does projection fit in with what you were saying?
I'll answer with a Vedantic perspective, highest teaching. So let's say for just a moment, when we look at the mind, these individual minds, a different way to look at mind is to look at what's called universal mind. Universal mind. That in fact, the statement is that there's one mind. And that these identities we all take, we've just tuned into and identified with a particular teeny tiny little aspect of universal mind. A little strand. And we say, this is me. And that's the delusion. So mind, the entire universal mind, is said to be the projection. And also the Sanskrit word that's used is Maya. Maya. Projection from what? Projection from absolute. Projection from the truth. From the Lord. From the absolute. And the projection is said to be of the absolute. If you can make the mental leap for just a moment, it's very, very hard to really do it, but if you can just do for a moment, there's only God. There's only God. If you can just say, okay, there's only God. Then what is this world? And the Vedantin will say, actually, something like this world is a projection. This world is a projection. And that applies to the entire world. Mind also a projection. Mind and world are same. There's no difference between mind and world. No difference. You wouldn't know if there were. You can argue all day long, but let me hook you up to an artificial reality projector and, put the screens on you and all of that. You'll forget. And you're in dream state and you say, this is real. And then you wake. In the same way, this world is of the mind projection. So like that. It said that Maya, that there are two powers of Maya. One of them is the projection. And it said the projection itself is fine. It doesn't, you don't have to lose yourself just because there's a movie showing. Maybe you can watch the movie and not lose yourself. But the other quality of Maya is the delusion, which is as if you walked into the movie theater, you sat down, the movie starts, and no longer are you sitting watching the movie. Now you're a character in the movie, and whatever happens to the character in the movie, that's you. It happened to me, and it's real. That's delusion. As if. So, okay.
I had a comment.
Oh.
It kind of related to, we had talked about this back in the Narada Bhakti Sutras a long time ago. But I don't know. For me, it just seems easier to work it out in the jnani way, but also find that the Bhakti Flow, like the devotion, like we were talking about just at the end, like offering every activity and seeing this all as that play. It seems like that comes through when that knowledge is there, even if it's not a lived experience. I feel like the Bhakti path has helped.
You see, that's a judgment. That's a judgment. Mm-hmm. It's fine to say, for me, this is the way I approach.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
How does the Bhakti approach? Well, the Bhakti approaches through devotion. What's the goal that's reached by the Bhakti? What's the goal that's reached by the jnani? It's the same. It's identical. The troublemaker for us is the state of the mind. If the mind were pure, you wouldn't even sit here and say that there's a mind. You might say they're thoughts, and the thoughts are like the clouds passing. but it's this attachment to a particular notion, a particular idea. That's the impurity, as it were. So we're speaking in the way of a jnani. But any way that you're free of that impurity, whether it's devotion or karma yoga or Raja Yoga or Jnana Yoga, any way it is, you're free of it. It's the same one defect that you're wanting to free yourself of. So it's just, and it's helpful to recognize, to see that there's more than one way to address it, to be free of it. Who is it, Rumi, who says countless ways to bend and kiss the ground? Countless ways to touch the Lord. It's the same.
Which is all beautiful.
So, coming back to, just if I could just share this. So there's so much going on right now, right? And we're touching and talking with so many people that are in pain, and we're experiencing some of the pain ourselves, of course, to varying degrees. Interestingly enough, the more the heart opens, the more of the pain we actually experience. So it's possible to touch all of it, but it's also possible to know that you're not it, and to be able to function in a way where you're not disturbed by it and able to serve recognizing it, where you don't lose yourself to it. So now there's an idea that, I lose myself to it because it's disturbing to me. But this discussion this morning, it just seems so fundamentally important for this time for us. If we have some light flowing through us and some ability to know something about what's really here, or some ability to touch the deeper in spite of the pain and all of this, then we have something to share. Ashram's beginning to open again. We're online again. It's very important for us to touch it and to share. And what's being shared is there's nothing wrong with not losing yourself to pain. Could I say it that way? There's nothing wrong with not losing yourself to someone else's pain. Compassion for someone and what they're experiencing, it doesn't mean, yes, you experience it, but it doesn't mean that you have to lose yourself to it in the same way they might have lost themselves to it. Is that helpful?
Yes.
You're free not to lose yourself. There's no requirement that you lose yourself. In fact, it can be said that you're far better off if you don't. And so it is possible to experience the pain, to have compassion, but not lose yourself to it. It's possible in your own inner world to do it. And it's possible when you're engaging with others. And what's being shared here really is it's best. Because then we're able to help to touch the truth in ourselves, but also to share an ear and an approach with those who are really caught up in this terrible pain that might help them to get through it and see the other side of it. Right? So the practices that we're given, the sacred practices that we're given, foundational practice is so important. And what's most important is for us to practice them. I don't just mean asana when I say that. You understand? I mean, serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize, be good, do good, be kind, be compassionate, bear insult, bear injury. Highest sadhana, bear insult, bear injury, highest yoga. There's a lot of stuff floating around. Okay, so we'll close with final prayers and writing. Very short. Sure. Is it helpful? Do you have any questions about this or any observations about this point?
Very helpful. These rides seem to have brought up a lot of hatred.
Yeah. So the guidance is not to isolate yourself from it. The guidance is not to feel the pain of the other. It's not to isolate yourself from the pain of the other. I said it wrong. The guidance is not to isolate yourself from the pain of the other. But don't entertain the pain. Don't take the pain on. Right? Allow compassion to really blossom. Be aware of it, but stay rooted in the place, however we touch it. Devotion, the practices that we have, mantra, kirtan, asanas, pranayama, all of these. I mean, stay centered. Stay centered. That's most important. Yes. Don't turn away because these hands are reaching up. Really, the hands in this time, they're reaching up. It's a time where people will come to realize that they don't know. Many will. So it's a transformational time in this way. And it doesn't have to end badly. In fact, I can tell you seated here, it won't end badly. But the extent to which we fall is something that's in our own hands. At some point it will turn. There's no question of that, really. There's not. This is all a cycle. Mm-hmm. But the extent to which we fall is in our hands. We have something to say about that. How deeply do we have to fall? How hard do we have to bounce off the ground in order to get our feet again? Oh.
Swamiji, really quickly, can I ask you a question in the form of an experience I had with compassion and not, it seems like it was very difficult in that moment. I was weed eating at the yoga farm and a bunny hopped out and got hit by
you told me.
And it was suffering so greatly and I just broke down and was just crying and weeping for the suffering.
Good.
What would be the difference in the inner world? Like, should I have had the firm observation of the weeping and the
No, you're feeling the pain that is there. You don't separate yourself from it. No, but you act in a beneficial way. Right? You say a prayer for the advancement of the soul. Yeah. And you keep going.
So that's not losing myself. What is it? Like how would I have lost myself, or did I? What can you differentiate as?
Yeah, if you get into all the grief about what I could have done, what I should have done, what I might have done, that's when you lose yourself to it. Yeah. I mean, happenings are always going on here. So
I understand. Thank you.
But you apologize. You ask for forgiveness. You release both ways. You release yourself, you release the money, everything. You keep stepping on. Yeah. That's the outer, that's the mind. And inner, you'll come to recognize that this is the show. Okay. Page 80, short version. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Orai Rukameva Bandhanam Mrityor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Orai Rukameva Bandhanam Mrityor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanam Mrityor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, let us abide in thee forever and ever. On below Sakura Shivananda Maharaj ki.
Jai.
On below Sri Swami Vishnu Devananda Maharaj ki.
Jai.
And the concept of entertaining, do we know what that means? You know, a thought comes and you either entertain it or you don't entertain it. Does that make sense?
Entertaining people in your home.
Yeah.
Entertain it in your mind.
And when you entertain it, it just gets stronger and stronger, right?
Right.
And at some point it leads to harboring it, giving it safe harbor. And that's when it becomes you.
Action.
And you can become your roommate.
So that word was used, entertaining it. Don't entertain these emotional states. Experience them. But that's not the same as entertaining them. Right? Because if you entertain the notion that it's Narayana, and this is actually the Lord's play, then you can still experience it as what it is, a part of the play, a part of the divine play. So you don't have to get distracted from it. You are able to be of service. You're able to be of benefit at that point. Is that okay? Om Natatra Sriyodati Natanya Tarakam Nimavidyo Banti Kujo Yamani Tvameva Bantam Manavati Sarvam Tashyavasa Sarvam Vivati Om Gange Chayamane Chaya Gudari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Namastubhyo Namo Namaha Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhushya Sakha Tvameva Vidyam Dravidam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Kayena Vacha Manasendriyana Buddhyatmanava Prakrite Svabhavat Karomi Adhyat Sakalam Parismahi Narayanaeti Sarvar Prayami Sarvam Dharmam Prichacha Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarvapalabhyo Mokshayishami Ma Suja. Could you touch the... So,